my live stream lectures. And before I get into today's very important topic, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters and everyone for supporting my channel. As a content creator, I'm just so excited in the direction where God is going to take my channel. My YouTube channel is a little over 5 years old. My channel has been monetized for about 3 years now. And as a content creator, I've just learned so much about YouTube in terms of about the direction I will take my channel and etc. So with that being said, let's get on down to today's lecture, which is I'm gonna present some winning tips in regards to how to become debt-free. I'm gonna present some winning tips on how to become debt-free. I've been living a debt-free lifestyle now for several years. I fully retired September 23, but I was debt-free years before I retired. And this is one of these topics that ties into the core concept of my channel, my brand, with what I do under my company, Patterson Associates Resource Center. And it specifically ties into my book title, Awake Financial Freedom, that hit all major bookstores well over 3 years ago. And I just want to share, with the world from 2000, I would say from 2008 to 2012, I was living in financial destruction, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, not a penny to my name. No one could have ever told me that September of 2023, I would be exited up out of this workforce forever with multiple retirement checks hitting me for the rest of my life. No one could have told me that. I couldn't even had the mindset. And that was the drive force and the motivation for me to write my book title, Awake Financial Freedom. My manuscript got accepted by 2 world-renowned publishing companies, and the rest is history. So I'm going to share in regards to many things I continue to do to remain debt-free. When I say debt-free, rural, I'm talking about for years, I have no mortgage. I have no car note. I have no credit card bills. I have no personal bills, no personal loan bills. I have no school loan. I have no medical bills. I have no real bills in any shape, form, or fashion. The only bills I have in the world is my cell phone bills, utility, and food. I pay my car insurance every 6 months. The totality of all my little monthly bills is less than $500 a month. Real talk, people. But however, one of the things I had to do to position myself to maintain my debt-free lifestyle after coming out of financial destruction, I had to shift my mindset in regards to money. I had to begin to respect my money, to control my money. And because if you ain't willing to shift your mind, and after you get tired of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, there you go. The first thing that's got to happen is, in terms of becoming debt-free, you got to shift your mindset. You got to respect your money. You got to control your money. And you got to come up with a strategy plan. I had a 10-year strategic plan on paper, 10 years before I retired, to be debt-free prior to retiring. And when I retired September of 2023, I met my goal to be debt-free years before I retired, maybe about 2 or 3 years before I retired. And what I did on part of that strategy plan is I was beginning to pay off mountains and mountains of debt. Because remember, I was in financial destruction. As I began to eliminate debt, paying off credit card debt, getting rid of the car note debt and school loan, as I was eliminating so many other bills, I can't even remember. But what I do remember is, as I changed my mindset and began to eliminate debt, that's critical. As I paid off a debt, that same money that I would have been paying on that debt, in my mind, I treated that money like it did not exist, and I began to divert that money and to put that money into to build my emergency savings account. That's where the shift in mindset occurs. Also, when I was drowning in a sea of debt, I got me a second job. I had to get some more income because you gotta, if the debt was so high, then I had to give up my weekends because my job at the time, I retired from state of North Carolina, traditional Monday through Friday, all weekends off and all major holidays off. So I literally got me during that time frame a part-time job, and I was working 30, 32 hours a week on my part-time job, and at the same time I had my full-time job. So I was clocking about 80 hours a week, people, during that time frame to generate another stream of income. That's critical. If you know you are drowning in a sea of debt, and your bills far exceed your income, you're going to have to sacrifice and buckle down and get you behind another stream of income. And I worked that second job. I worked a couple of jobs, literally all the way up until I retired. I worked a couple of jobs. Really, to be honest with you, I worked two jobs, over the last 25 years of my working history. But I got even more laser focused that last 10 years prior to me retiring. I would work two jobs off and on, but that last 10 years, I was laser focused in terms of the amount of hours I was working on that second job. Even though it was part-time, but I was still clocking 32 hours a week on my part-time job, 40 hours a week on my primary job, clocking close to 80 hours a week. In addition to that, on my primary job, we had all major holidays all throughout the year. So I would work extra hours on my part-time job on major holidays throughout the year, plus pulling double shifts on my part-time job on the weekend. So I was literally clocking almost 40 hours a week on my part-time job in order to generate another stream of income. And when you do that, rural, you got to have a purpose. You have got to have a purpose for that extra stream of income. With that extra stream of income, I started slamming money towards my bills, got paid off all the credit card, paid off my car note early, paid off my mortgage 20 years early. Real talk, people. And so, and with some of that money, I self-funded my daughter through college. So when she graduated college, she owed nobody. So I literally had to do what I had to do in order to meet my goal to be debt-free prior to retiring. And I met that goal. And with all of that extra money I was making, as I began to knock out all of that debt, as I was eliminating debt, then all that extra disposable income, I began to slam more money into my financial portfolio. I began to slam more money into my retirement. I can clearly remember the last 3 years of my working life. And by that time, I owed nobody nothing. All my debt was cleared out. I'm making all this money. And along that journey, I can remember during the time of COVID, my state job, they gave us a lot of extra money to work during COVID time. We got so much extra money, 3 years during COVID time. The money was so significant. So what I did with all of that extra money, I was just slamming it into 401, slamming it into my financial portfolio. So I'm got all this extra money and COVID money, money from the part-time job, bills eliminated. So I basically, the last 3 years of my working history, I was able to reinvest 100% of my full-time job income from the state of North Carolina. I wasn't even touching that money. I was reinvesting my 100% of my salary into additional portfolio, additional retirement. Then I still got all this other money from the part-time job. I was investing a lot of that money because by that time I had paid off all my bills. And that is the secret, people. That is my secret. It worked for me in regards to how I've been able to become debt-free prior to retirement and have sustained it. I have been able to sustain this debt-free lifestyle. All the bills I have in the world, like I said, which consists of my cell phone bill, food, gas, and utilities, the totality of all the bills I have in this world, and it's been that way for years, is less than $500 a month. So that's why I'm in the position where 100% of all of my retirement checks, and I've been fully retired for 2 years, I have not touched that money. I have literally reinvested all of my retirement income into another retirement account. Because think about it. If I didn't touch my salary for my last 3 years of working and I was able to reinvest that money, so when I retire, now I'm getting these pensions, I'm going to have the mindset, I'm going to continue to not touch the money and reinvest it. So that's the critical key right there. But make sure also you're building your emergency savings account. That's the critical tip in terms of how to become debt free. You got to be slamming money into your emergency savings account. So when any kind of financial emergency come up, you're not relying on personal loans. You're not relying on credit cards. You just pull that money from your emergency savings account and take care of that unexpected bill or that car expense and etc. Another powerful piece is, under no circumstances are you to create new debt when you're on this journey to become debt free. New debt, do not create new debt when you're on the trajectory path to become debt free. Because what a lot of people do when they pay the mortgage off, when they pay the car off, when they pay the credit card off, they take their behind, turn their behind around and max out the credit cards again. I don't even own credit cards. I used to, but what most people do when they get their behind out of debt, they'll turn around and start charging up on the credit card again. They'll refinance the mortgage, they'll get another mortgage, they'll get a bigger house, so now you got another mortgage. They'll go out and get a high-end vehicle. They'll trade that car in that's paid off and go out and get a high-end vehicle that they behind cannot afford. So now you're creating all of this new debt. You are defeating the purpose, people. And I talk about a lot of these strategies in my book. Another thing I do to maintain my financial debt-free lifestyle is I use my powerful book as a resource. I sometimes listen, because my book is now an audio version. I sometimes listen to my own book and as a resource to remind me how messed up financially I was. In real talk, people, real talk. And I had to restart my financial lifestyle in my early 40s. So 10 years later, I'm debt free, retiring. So if I can do this in my early 40s by not having a pot to piss in, and to be able to exit up out of this workforce early with multiple retirement checks, anybody can do this. Because I'm telling you, I didn't have 1 cent to my name, but going to work every day, working 2 jobs and etc. But I had to shift my mindset, people, about this financial piece. That's the core concept of my channel. And another key, a critical piece, and that I do that help maintain my debt-free lifestyle, that helped me, I cut loose a lot of worldly possessions, people. Even when I had my big house, and even though it was paid off, I got rid of that big house, no need for it. But prior to me selling my home, I got rid of all of my furniture out of my home years before I sold it. Meaning all of the furniture all throughout that home, bedroom sets, living room sets, refrigerator, stove, pots, pans, to embrace minimalism. Because when you declutter and when you get rid of all of these worldly possessions, then that's less clutter you got to worry about. It's less things that you got to clean, but only keep the things that are valued to you. So and I've been living a minimalist lifestyle for quite a few years now, but I'm telling you, when I shift my mindset and embrace that minimalistic lifestyle and downsize, that saved me a lot of money, because you're not spending money on keeping up with the glitz and the glamour and the latest technology and the gadget and the clothes and the shoes and the jewelry. Have what you need and cut loose those worldly possessions, so you can spend that money on life experience and begin to do things like travel debt-free. You know, I've been doing a lot of traveling abroad, and now since I've had that minimalistic life mindset, because when you embrace that minimalistic mindset, the money you do spend is very intentional spending, you know, life experiences versus amassing a whole lot of possessions. And that requires a shift in mindset. Minimalism don't mean that you're not spending money. No, minimalism means you're very intentional with how you spend your money and how you spend your energy. Real talk, people. And all of that ties into uh, reclaiming your finances, being intentional with your money versus being a hyper spender or spending your money because you're keeping up with the Joneses. Because in reality, people, there are only 1% of the people in this world who are truly the Joneses, the super wealthy. So you will go broke trying to keep up with the Joneses because you are not gonna catch them. Real talk. So all of this ties into some tips and strategies in regards to how to become debt free. Earning that extra income as you pay off debt, that money you would have been spending on the debt. Now pump up your financial portfolio, your emergency savings account, and etc. And you gotta have the ability to say no. You can't be the go-to person every time friends and family members or even co-workers, every time they get into a financial situation, they calling you up and thinking you gonna be the ATM machine. You're gonna have to have the ability to say no, to have the power of discernment on when to say yes. But you got to have the ability to say no, because if you got to be mindful and careful, because you look up your friends and family members, we're calling you every week, telling you they need money to pay, to get the lights turned on. They need money to pay their rent. They need money to pay their mortgage. They need money, gas money, food money, week after week after week. And then when you're dishing out, that's pulling away from your goals to become debt free. Real talk, people. And another key powerful tip that I tell anyone, although I'm fully retired, I still maintain my professional credentials. I'm a licensed clinical addiction specialist. I'm credentialed in 3 states. And I always tell people, figure out a way to utilize your talent, skills, and credential to generate money under your own LLC, under your own company. The last 25 years of my working history, I always made money under my company, utilizing my credentials to generate revenue. And now, since I'm fully retired, I have a home office. I normally see my clients 1 or 2 days out of the week in terms of how to continue to generate money under my company, under my LLC, as an addiction expert. I do a lot of consulting. So when I'm consulting with these stakeholders, I'm entering into a contractual agreement. They got to pay me for my knowledge, skills, and my credential if you want the expert to come out as an addiction consultant expert. Real talk, people. So I tell people, if you got any kind of knowledge, skills, or ability, specifically a credential, then set up your LLC, utilize your knowledge and skills and talents outside of that day job to have another way to generate ongoing revenue, even in retirement. And this is all of these, what I'm talking about is things that I personally did to position myself to continue to be in the position where 100% of all of my retirement checks has always been able to be reinvested into another retirement income, because I'm also in a position where I generate ongoing revenue. I can make as much or as little income under my company utilizing my powerful addiction credentials. Real talk, people. So again, these are the winning tips, because I'm telling you, you got people right now, you got people who may be listening to this lecture who are literally drowning in a sea of debt. I was one of those people. From 2007 to 2012, I was literally one of those individuals drowning in a sea of debt. But when I got tired of living like that and had that spiritual battle in 2012, and God gave me the skills to write my manuscript to my book, and the rest is history. And I'm here to, and I could have never imagined having this conversation. Real talk. And another key tip also, no matter where you're at in your career, always, even when you decide to retire, continue to generate revenue utilizing your knowledge, skills, and credential and talent. It's always good to have multiple streams of income, but at a certain point through this journey, use your talents and skills and credential to generate income, because it's a powerful thing where I can pick and choose on who I deliver my expert service to, in turn, depending on who the stakeholder is. I turn down a lot of contracts I don't say yes to everything because I'm still maintaining my balance. And most I'm gonna do is make money 1 or 2 days out the week, and that's it. Because all money ain't good money, real talk. So share this information. Somebody might need to hear it. This is a serious topic because you got people right now getting ready to create new debt for the holidays. You know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, they're going out here spending all this hyper spending, creating new debt for the holidays. No, they ain't got the money to do all this. You know, it's nothing wrong with in having a holiday meal, enjoying that family. You ain't got to always be spending all this money on gifts when you know you ain't got the money. Real talk. So share this information in terms of the winning tips on how to be debt free. I'm telling you, it's working for me. Real talk. That's all I have. Simplify, simple fidelis, and I'm going to leave you in the care of your own conscience. Have a great day.